already. Week 17 of the NFL season is pretty much all but wrapped up at this point. There is a game on Monday night still yet to be played, and that's going to be against the Lions and the 49ers. And in this one, I do think Detroit's going to win this game. Obviously, they're in a scenario right now where they're going to play a game against the Vikings next week that's going to be for the division. It's going to be huge. The 49ers have been reeling. Guerrero did say he was going to play in this one, but I like Detroit to win and cover in that Monday Night Football game. But it was a really interesting week in the NFL. We had games on Christmas. We had games on Saturday. We had games everywhere this week. And I want to go over it. I'm going to show the playoff picture and the current draft order at the end of this as well. But let's start with those Christmas Day games, especially the Chiefs and the Steelers game. And I think if you look at it, the Steelers got routed in this one. They got routed, and the Chiefs played a really, really good quality game through and through. Travis Kelce played well. Patrick Mahomes. Xavier Worthy is getting better by the week, I feel. And, yeah, Steelers, I don't know if it was that Russell Wilson and Pickens just weren't on the same page due to his being out the previous couple weeks. Maybe that was a factor, but the Chiefs dominated this game, and they're getting into their postseason form. This is usually when they start playing their best football, and it's scary to think they're 15-1. They're going to have a bye in the playoffs, and they're only going to have to win 2 games to get to the Super Bowl. It's scary stuff, and they played really good in this for the Steelers. No longer controlled their own destiny in the AFC North, so that's something to keep an eye on next week. The other game on Christmas was not competitive either, the Ravens and the Texans. CJ Stroud has had a major regression this year, and I think a lot of it is due to the fact that a lot of his weapons have been ruled out, like Stephon Diggs was ruled out early in the year. Obviously, you had the terrible injury to Tank Dell. Nico Collins missed half the year. And their O-line's been very shaky. I think that's a big factor to why this is happening. But what I will say about C.J. Stroud is all he's done is come in and win the division 2 years in a row. And I know it's a weak division, but that is something you can... I know there's a lot of people on the fence right now and that are not happy with his performance the previous couple weeks. The thing that you can hang your hat on is he's done nothing but came in and won the division and got you to the playoffs 2 years in a row. So that's something to be taken lightly. And then you go to the Ravens, who are just really putting it together right now. They look like they're playing really good football at this moment. Had a really good win against the Steelers the previous week, and then come and rout the Texans. Lamar Jackson had a long touchdown run. He had a few nice touchdown passes. Henry was really consistent, 147 yards and a touchdown. I thought they had a really good performance, and we'll see if they can clinch the AFC North next week. Moving on to the Thursday game, one of the worst games I think I've ever watched before. It's just the Bears couldn't do anything. Seattle couldn't do anything, and it was the ugliest win of the season, I think, or ugliest game of the season at the very least. And it's just really unfortunate that it happens on a Thursday night when everybody's watching. But yeah, that was embarrassing. And I know the Bears organization is the issue, but you do have to take a second to think about it. With the same roster that was probably not as talented, Justin Fields had a much better record and, in my opinion, season than Caleb Williams has had so far. And Caleb Williams, he's had some good games, and I see the talent in certain plays, but what I will say about him, he holds the ball too long. The number one knock on Caleb Williams when he was coming out of the draft, the one issue that I had with him was he has a flair for the spectacular. That's the biggest knock that I had with him. He might not always take the open guy. He might go and try to do something ridiculous. And when he pulls it off, it looks incredible. We've seen that this year. But look at the great quarterbacks in NFL history. They do the boring stuff, the check down, the screen, the dump, the slant to the open guy. They do that really, really well. And if he doesn't figure that out, it could get ugly because he's holding the ball too long. Justin Fields holds the ball too long as well, but he's sometimes able to make up with it because he has unbelievable athleticism. Caleb Williams is not near the athlete of a Justin Fields. So I really don't know what you do at this point if you're the Bears. I would hire Mike Vrabel. I would hire a really, really sharp OC to fine-tune Caleb Williams' game. Because Vrabel could come in and he could fix the organization. And then if they got the OC, that he could work with Caleb Williams and they could go from there. But I don't know. This is one of the better jobs that you can have in the NFL just because of location. But it's going to be the toughest turnaround in the NFL for sure. Moving on to the Saturday games, the Chargers dominated the Patriots in this one. Herbert's looking really good this year. Ladd McConkey just doing better every week. And then obviously J.K. Dobbins comes back. He gives them a big spark. That's really all you can ask for. They're in the postseason. I don't think I'd want to play them round one. I think they will be a one and done, but they're a really scary team when they have J.K. Dobbins. For sure. Moving on to a game that was crazy. Bengals and Broncos just kept trading punches in this one towards the end of the game. It became a shootout. And I really thought when the Broncos tied this game with not that much time left, I said this is a no-brainer. You have to go for two. Because if you don't go for two, you give the Bengals the ball first, and they can't stop their offense that had been shown previously before. And Sean Payton, he takes risks usually, and they chose not to go for two, and they end up losing this game, a game that obviously they really, really, really would have liked to win. I don't know how you don't go for two in that spot, especially in the NFL rules. You really don't want to play for overtime. And I understand that if they tied, it would have been the same for them. They would have been in. But the way that the overtime is set up, the scoring breakdown of it. Now, I know the Bengals didn't score on their first drive. But if they were to have, you're putting the game in the hands of a coin. And I never think that's the proper way to do it. T. Higgins has 3 touchdowns, including the game-winning one in this game. And I don't see him returning to Cincinnati at this point because now, after a performance like this and after what he's done this year, they're not going to be able to afford him. And I think previously to what I've seen this year and what other people had seen this year, there was easily a world where they could have paid him and it would have been fine. Obviously, though, Cincinnati doesn't like to open their checkbook, and they have usually underpaid players and chosen not to play valuable guys in the past. But now I don't think even rosters that are willing to spend a lot of money could afford him, because I honestly think that this is going to be one of the most coveted free agent wide receivers that we've seen in a long time just going into free agency. He really has a shot to be a top 10 receiver next year if he gets in the right system. So maybe there's a world where Cincinnati can keep him, but wherever he goes, he's going to make that team a serious, serious contender no matter where he goes. Then moving on to the Rams-Cardinals game. Not much in this. Obviously, the Rams get a big win. I'll give it to the Cardinals. They showed up and they really played and they gave it their best shot in this one. And they really, they put forth an effort. And they tried to win this game, even though they were eliminated before. But Puka Nacua had a great game. There were some late interceptions. And the Rams found a way to win. And now they have a huge game against Seattle. I think they're going to be able to take them. But we'll see how that goes. Moving on to the Sunday slate of games, you had the Bills and the Jets. I really don't have much to say about this game, other than the Jets need a complete restructure. It's similar to the Bears where they need a culture guy to come in. I don't know who it's going to be. If they get Vrabel, that'd be crazy. But Vrabel he's only going to go to one team, and he has to agree to go to the team. And I don't know. The Jets, their organization with the ownership, I don't know who would really want that job right now because you just don't know about the stability. But the Bills playing really well. Josh Allen had a really good game. There were some cool touchdowns in this game. I'm interested to see how they do in the postseason. The next game over was the Raiders and the Saints, and really not a lot of implications in this game. There is to say of note that Brock Bowers broke a lot of rookie receiving records and rookie tight end records, and he really has had an incredible year. And if you're looking at it, if you're the Raiders, at least he's something to hold your hat on, that you were able to get a future tight end for years to come. Now they just got to get the quarterback right and a few other positions, and they could be dangerous in the future. The Saints, they obviously need to restart from scratch. They have some nice defensive pieces, but outside of that, and Alvin Kamara is getting a little bit older in my opinion. I think outside of a few defensive pieces and an aging Kamara, they really don't have much going for them. Next up was the shocker of the week, in my opinion, with the Giants beating the Colts. And gosh, this is bad for the Giants. And there will be Giants fans that sit there and say, this isn't bad for us. This is a good win. I bet you there's people cheering. If I was a Giants fan today, I would be livid. Because they're trading up now. At this point, they want Shedeur Sanders. They've made that public. They've made that big news. And now they've fallen down to the 4th pick, where, barring insanity in Week 18, they're most likely going to stay there. So I'm assuming they're going to trade the number 1 or number 2. And if they do that, how many first-round picks are they going to have to give up at this point? So they cost themselves a good situation. If you're the Colts, Joe Flacco, the Magic, pretty much over at this point. I really don't see a resurrection past this. But what I will say is what he was able to do, and he still had 330 yards in this game, but you can just kind of see it, that he's a gunslinger. And for that little brief smidge bit of time in Cleveland, it worked really well. But there's limitations to being a gunslinger in the NFL. And sometimes it looks amazing, and sometimes it looks like this. Cowboys, Eagles, this was an absolute rout. Obviously, CeeDee Lamb didn't play. Saquon Barkley went over 2,000 yards, one of only 8 running backs ever to do so, which is just a big feat. But yeah, there's nothing really positive to say about the Cowboys here. They did not play a good game, and they got smoked. And we'll see how the Eagles do to finish out the year. Next up, we have the Panthers and the Buccaneers. And this is another one where the Bucs got a solid win, 48-14, just dominated through and through. There was a block punt in this game as well. Baker, he's having an incredible year, 359, 5 TDs. Mike Evans played really well. They really found a star back in Bucky Irving. He's just been so good for them down the stretch. And they now control their own destiny for a playoff spot. And I definitely think they're a team that deserves it. Titans and Jags. And Brian Thomas Jr. had a really nice game again. Spears was injured at some point in this game. Really not much to say about this one. Not really that important. It knocks the Jags out of the top 3 pick sweepstakes. But they have something in Brian Thomas Jr., and that's really something to note. Now we go to the later window of games, and you had the Dolphins and the Browns, and Huntley was able to get a good win for the Dolphins here. But if you look at the Browns, DTR just can't play. He's not the answer. I thought it was clear 2 weeks ago that he wasn't the answer, and I don't know why they don't have Jameis Winston out there at this point. Maybe they're trying to see if there's any redeeming qualities in DTR at this point, but I don't see it. And I honestly think he should probably be released from the roster after this. He's not capable of being a starter. Like, I don't even think he's capable of being a backup quarterback in the NFL. Like, he looked like, even next to a guy like Huntley, who has struggled in the NFL, he looked like well overmatched against him. So we'll see there. Browns move up in the standings and the picks. Packers and Vikings. This was all Vikings early in the game. All Vikings early, but the Packers were able to rally back, come back, make it a game towards the end. But the Vikings just found a way to win. They got a huge first down at the end. Jordan Addison had a good game. The Packers' offense struggled at times. The Vikings had a really good defensive scheme, and they found a way to win. And they're 14-2, and I don't think anybody saw that coming. And then finally, we go to the Commanders and the Falcons. Jaden Daniels continues to show why he's going to be the Rookie of the Year this year, the Offensive Rookie of the Year. 227 through the air, 3 TDs, 127 rushing. What I will say, though, is Penix played a decent game, but Jaden Daniels outshined him, and he's having a ridiculous year. Overtime victory. Falcons could have gotten this game. Something to note, the Falcons no longer control their own destiny for the division. They need Tampa to lose, and they'll have to win. If we go to the playoff picture at this point, you have pretty much a similar breakdown, other than the fact that the Vikings currently, as of right now, would be the number 1 seed, and the Lions would be the 5. They're going to play, though, next week. That's going to be a big, big showdown, and we'll see. There's a lot of things in play in the AFC still, too. Cincinnati Bengals are not dead yet. Neither is Miami. And at this point, what Cincinnati would need is they would need Miami and Denver to lose, and they would have to win next week. That is their path, and it certainly is possible, but they're just going to need a lot of help. If you look at the NFC standings right now, really, it's just between Atlanta and Tampa Bay. Seattle was eliminated. The Rams will be in. They won their division. This is due to strength of schedule. And, yeah, I mean, we'll see if Tampa Bay loses and Atlanta wins. But that's kind of where that is at right now. Then if we go to the current draft order, you have the Patriots now with the number 1 pick. Tennessee 2, Cleveland 3. The Giants move all the way to 4 because, remember, they beat the Browns. And it's a disaster for the Giants right now. But the Browns play the Ravens next week. They're not going to beat the Ravens, in my opinion. Tennessee plays Houston, game they could win, but I doubt they do. And I think New England has Buffalo. So you have a lot of situations that would have to happen if you're the Giants. I'm excited to see how it all unfolds. I will be back for my picks for Week 18, the final week of the season, doing a giveaway in that. Stay tuned.